Talk from our craftsmanship series. We are so thrilled to welcome Valenciano and Len Cabili here with us tonight. Rewinding a little bit, my name is Bayanihan. I'm the Artistic Director of Balay Projects, and we're here in our outpost. So Balay Projects is headquartered in Bataan at Las Casas Filipinas de Abuzar, whose mission is to revive heritage craft and architecture techniques. So we can think of nothing better than to invite Len and Al to come here and talk a bit about their practice tonight. I'll introduce them briefly and then let their work speak for themselves. So starting with Al, since Al is starting. Al Valenciano is a painter, craftsman, and the founder of Balay and Atong, an enterprise dedicated to supporting the study and continuation of Inabel craftsmen in Ilocos, Abra, and the Mountain Province. The project was created in response to imported, factory-made textiles entering the market, and weavers discontinuing the craft in favor of higher income jobs. The local artisans weave the fabric in their homes using traditional wooden looms and centuries-old techniques. Balay and Atong aims to reintroduce Inabel to the local market by incorporating the fabric into everyday items. Lenora Cabili is the founder of Filip Inna, a clothing brand which works with artisans from various ethnolinguistic groups, from the Tipoli to the Tausug. I apologize for my pronunciation. She's a former member of the Bayanihan, Philippine national dance company, through which she familiarized herself with the traditions of indigenous groups. She earned a bachelor's degree in clothing technology from BAP Diliman. She began Filip Inna in 2010 as a way to preserve indigenous traditions of weaving, embroidery, and beadwork by incorporating them into contemporary design. And my dress is a wonderful creation by her, as is her beautiful coat. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Al.
Good evening. This is a replay of a talk delivered in November last year. And we were talking about preservation of intangible heritage. And I was in the process, or still in the process, of nominating Inabel, hopefully as to be recorded as intangible heritage of the Philippines in the UN. Well, Inabel, a little background there how I started, because I'm sure you'll be asking the question. Anyway, my work with Inabel didn't start as a business. It started as a research work. First, fondness for textile. Then it became a research work. But for you to research, you actually have to learn to weave. For you to weave, you actually have to produce. For you to produce, what do you do with the production you come up with? You start selling it to friends, and friends start selling it to friends, and friends becomes holders, and the rest is history. Now, what is Inabel? Inabel is a precise term for hand-woven cloth in the Ilocos. Because people will say Abel, people will say Inabel. But when you say Inabel, it is precisely Ilocano made, which means it was done in the northern Philippines from Ilocano-speaking people. So we call it Inabel. And the characteristics is very much like Ilocanos. Very strong, very sturdy, straight edge, and very clean, and not much, no frou-frous in the design. Very utilitarian, very Ilocano. Why is it important, and how long has Inabel been with us? So there were the recent excavations in Sinait came out with pearls used to spin cotton, and they were dated back in the prehistoric burial sites in Sinait, which means the weaving traditions had been existing in the Ilocos region when they were still lo'oks, small settlements by the water. And it has been existing even before the coming of our colonizer, the Spain. And when they came, the early years of Spanish colonization of the Ilocos cotton and textiles were regarded as their premier quality. So that part of the tributes were collected in textiles and some were in gold. It's been noted that even the military uniforms were made in Ilocos. You see General Luna and the pinstripes sa Dinagrillo those were most likely woven in the Ilocos region. And we supplied for 20,000 men. That was the time that there were close to 20,000 looms in the Ilocos region. So it was an industry. It was not just a backyard thing. It reached that point. So under the colonial government, the Spaniards began to take interest in Ilocano woven canvas. They say that they were used as sails, and even for local barangays, villays, and local seafaring vessels. So we have all these designs. This one, for example, that came from the Ilocos, from the Ninadalillo, from the Tindians tao and caballo for the horse and the prince. The ever famous binakol, which is the optic design. The binandera, which is just your plain stripes. And it was woven. The Aplan Indians and the Ilocanos, there wasn't really that much division then. Because there was only one Ilocos. There was supposed to be one Ilocos. The Indians are brothers in the Ilocos. One thing good up to this point is I still do the traditional steps of weaving, except for the spinning of the cotton. Because nowadays, cotton is commercially available, but I still try to research on the local dyes and the local processes. The problem is there are too much commercialization in the cotton and on the textile available that we cannot actually achieve the same quality that we used to have in the 1800s or until the mid-1900s. And Inabel became a palete thing. It became for the market. People will now say it's cheap because you buy it it's handmade, it's local. Instead of it giving it a premium because it's handmade and it's done by hand. So it became the opposite. It's supposed to be cheaper. So today there are less than 300 active weavers in the region. Some weaving traditions have died from the weavers, and some weaving communities have vanished. When I say weavers, you can count by hand master weavers. When I say master weavers, they know how to set up the loom, they know how to create designs, and they know how to weave. Weavers, there's a lot of weavers. It's a mechanical thing. You just weave in, out, in, out, in, out, open, close, open, close. But weavers who can actually weave and produce designs and produce textiles, you can count it by your hand. And I work with 12 weaving communities, and each community has their own master weaver, and hopefully they're passing it on. So I established Balay and Atong. This is Balay and Atong where we work. We started with 2 communities in Paway, and then we started working with smaller families in Ilocos, La Union, Abra, and recently in the Mountain Province. When I say work with community, I do not like working with organized cooperatives because it becomes a headache. And I'd rather work with individuals who actually want to work and weave. So it's more personalized. And by working with them, we have tweaked several designs. It's still the same tradition, it's still the same amount of work, but we changed colors, we changed material inputs, we changed their use. Now we can actually cover a California size, king size bed. Because back then, the kumots or the blankets could only cover up to your knees. They were smaller. So now we can cater for a wider market. This is a traditional kusikos. It's still traditional. The one on the right is new. What did we do? We just expanded and made it look new. So it's still the same tradition, it's still the same design. Another traditional ones. And now we use them as napkins. And I try to use them for everyday life because it's only when you use it on your daily life that you can sustain its use, its production. These are very traditional wheels. There's only one barangay who does it in Pawai. In this town, and there's only one who is a master in this. But we're increasing. One thing good, the master is only 42 years old. And we have 18 students behind. We have 18 students with curriculum already, but we don't call them students. And I think we are going to be successful to pass on this one. So, not only did we look at the weaving, we also look at the joineries. Because the loom, the textiles are limited to the size of the loom. So we have to be more creative in putting them together. So this is adopting the Indian way of putting it together. So you would have hands, gagamba, or spiders, or centipedes, or the hands and the eyes depicted in the joineries. And we started bringing them outside the Philippines and joining shows that would showcase and using them in different ways. It was good with the acceptance, but how do you do this? Take out the stigma that Inabel is a textile. We think that they are works of art. They're artisanal. These are not mass-produced textiles. That's the only way you can market them more, and you can make your weavers happier by paying them more. For me, a weaver should get the minimum, should at least get the minimum pay. And a master weaver should be paid the same amount as a manager of a bank, if possible. Because they do have something we all don't have, not even a manager of a bank can do. So these are some of our weavers in Pinili, in Santiago, in Bongal, in Itzarat. So what do we do in Balay? What do we do in Balay na Atong? To make it sustainable, by reintroducing the traditional weaves and patterns found in the study collection. In our study collection, we have more than 250 textiles dating from the late 1800s to the mid-1900s. So it's a matter of getting all these things and reproducing them. The eagle on the left is 1800s, and the ones on the right, the whiter ones, are already 2016. So we can do it. The guava leaves, the fireplace on top is 1800s, 1950s, 2010. So we are getting there, hopefully. 2, improving material inputs of the weavers. If you put something that's bulok, if you put a bad thread in, you get a bad textile. So we improve it. And I try to source threads for the weavers, but there's a trick there again. Do not give it to them. Put it to a third party who will take care of the warehousing. And I will tell the weavers, go buy your thread here. Because I tried giving it to them, the wastage is 15 to 20%. But if they cash out and buy their own thread, wastage is 2% to 5% only. So that's how it works. 3, improving the quality of output through close monitoring of weaving communities. It's not a happy life. We have to go see them at least once a month, twice a month. And say, hi, how are you? Are you happy? And you know they're happy when you go to the small sari-sari store and say, Manang, do they have utangs or do they owe a lot from you? And if the sari-sari store is well stocked and very happy, it simply means the viewers are happy. It's a very, very simple way of measuring if they are doing well. 4. Educating the weavers to use modern communication mediums and banking systems for transactions to facilitate orders. Now they know how to text. All of them have messengers. They have Facebook. Because that's the easiest way to get in touch with them. So we try to teach them, and there is the tutor for the manhods. Providing higher pay for good quality of work produced. Make sure that the weavers are paid the minimum wage, if not more than what is required by law. Because we understand that they are not doing this on an 8-hour basis. But we know how many hours they put into their work. And they should be paid equally. They are not poor. Please do not think of them as poor. That's a common mistake of a lot of social entrepreneurs. They don't do the research, so they say, they're poor, kawawa naman sila, you have to buy their products, they're dying, they're dead. No. No. Please do not think of them as poor. They are even richer than us because they know something we do not know how to do. Training younger weavers to take over the craft in the future. It is the center's policy not to take out weavers and relocate them to factories, because doing so will kill the weaving tradition in the communities. And this is very true because in the 70s, in the 80s, when weaving has become a fad and they export this to Bloomingdale's and everywhere, all the weavers were uprooted in communities, put them in factory. What do they produce? Ugly looking weaves. No more character. And then the weaving community dies. So what do we do to make sure the kids learn? I try to tell them, well, how much does it cost to send your child to school? Just do it one child at a time, not a big time. Try saying, I'll send your child to school with the condition that you teach them how to weave. Because it's not child labor. Because the only way tradition can be passed if you start young. So let us not use the Western way of thinking that using children to do weaving and everything is child labor. It's not child labor. It's passing on of traditions. As long as they're not forced at that point. And we try to join local international shows to market Inabel's artisanal crafts. So in the study center, that's how we keep all the weaves, more than 250 of them. So we preserve more than 200 textiles in the collection. We document and study traditional patterns. The way we try to document now is, hopefully we can do thread counts. We can program them, because there's a computer that does programming for weaves already. Because there will come a time that nobody will even know how to weave. But at least, if somebody who knows how to read the weaves sees our documentation, then they can still recreate, be it a Filipino, a German, an American. The design is still Philippine and you still own it. Study the traditional dyes and materials used. We have a community in Abra now who plants indigo for us. And it's the wild one, but I don't try to process it into powder. So we still use the traditional way of boil the leaves and wrap your cloth. The results are more exciting. Not only do we document the threads, the textiles, we also document the traditions that goes with it. There's actually a song in Pawai for dancing, for weaving. In each community, they have songs and dances that can be attributed to weaving. So it's now a whole culture thing. It's no longer just the textile. And there's also a story that goes to each pattern, each design, which is a longer thing. And I do these talks. that's also one of the trust of the study center. So we can share what Inabel is, because we need to learn about it for us to appreciate it. And when we appreciate it, that's the only time we can protect it. And when we protect it, we own it. So these are some of my manangs. And all of our wish would be, we hope that someday we'll realize that Inabel could be a textile we could be proud of and use it every day and use it in our daily lives. And that's the end of the story. It's next turn.
My mom's from Basilan. My dad grew up in Lanao, so I grew up just really seeing the Maranaos come into our homes wearing their manongs. So these are like images that have stayed on with me. I remember distinctly one summer we were in Basilan and we were crossing the strait, and there was a fluvial parade. It was a wedding, a Tausug wedding. And up to now, the image is still in my head of like the sails and even the flags that they had. And then my mom was with Bayanihan, so when we were in college, we were forced to join Bayanihan. But it was really a fun way to learn about the Philippine culture. Growing up, I was exposed to Mindanao. So being part of the Bayanihan, I was exposed to the Kalinga. And I remember every time I dance, I would think, oh my gosh, I would wear this with jeans. So it started back then. But I didn't go into it until much later on. So fast forward, there were a lot of things that happened in between. But in 2008, I stand corrected. I visited the Tibolis just recently, and they told me, no, it was in November 2008 when you first came to visit us. So in 2008, I took my first trip to the Tibolis. So when I was like starting to think about doing a fashion line, I was in New York. I met a textile designer. He was into block prints, and well, I was in his oh no, how do I stop this? It's going too fast. Okay. Yeah, baka I have so much going on with the slides. How do I stop it? Or I can just do it manually.
It's okay now.
It's okay now? Yeah. So I was in New York, and then I met this textile designer, and I noticed that his books, he would like encircle all these villages around Asia, and he would write a particular skill that they had. It was a eureka moment for me, because right there and then, this was in 2007, it was like in September of 2007. Right there and then, I knew that I wanted to do the same thing within the Philippines. So I went home, went straight to Mindanao. I started working with the Maranaos. I started a home line, but I was too impatient. I was like, I think fashion would be better. So in 2008, November, I took a trip with my mom to Lake Cebu. And then I brought along the Dream Weavers book, and I had this quest to meet all the Dream Weavers. I met maybe like 5 out of the 7 or out of the 9. And then I went into a cooperative and I said, I'm looking for embroiderers. Lo and behold, there was someone who said, oh, I'll do it. So I gave her a blank canvas. I said, okay, here's like 5 garments with the threads. You do whatever you want to do with it. This was in November. I got back the samples maybe in like February and March. And I remember when I opened the box, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm onto something. It was just so beautiful. I had maybe like 10 samples. I went to New York, I tried to push it, nothing happened. And I was like so frustrated. And I kept on praying and praying, and I felt like I was being told to come back to Manila. Okay, I went back, and then one day I was supposed to have Bible study, and it was canceled. And so I was just like browsing through the internet. I stumbled upon a website. It's called Inabel. I shoot them an email, and I said, you know, I have this clothing line. I'm working with artisans in the Philippines. whoa, the owner emailed me back in 2 minutes, and she said, okay, send me pictures. I sent it right away. Within 10 minutes, she said, okay, we have a truck show in Southampton. Why don't you send everything? And I was like, wow, what is that? In like 3 weeks? And I'm like, how many pieces should I send? And she said, well, it's your first time, maybe like 30 to 35. I went back to my cabinet. And at this point, I was getting worried because all the samples were coming in. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to start selling. I went back to my cabinet and there were like 35. So I really felt like it was like meant to be. Like everything just like fell into place. I sent everything, but first I checked out if she was to be trusted because this was like my whole life. It turns out she was the former editor of Tongue and Country. And I sent it to her. We sold 27 pieces. And that was the start. This was in 2009, July of 2009. We did another tongue show in Chicago. And in 2010, I registered Filip Inna. I really knew that it had to be a word, a brand name that would point back to the Philippines. I didn't want an eponymous line. I started with the most obvious, that I'm Filipina. And so I played around with the word, and first it was Filip Inna, and then after, and I still have my notebook, like the page where I was like writing everything. And then finally I was like talking to my sister, and she said, oh, why don't you do Philip? And I thought Philip, it looked too British. And she said, oh no, just do Filip. And then she wanted, yeah, and then I added the plus sign. And then so that was it. I went straight to IPO and had it registered. So that was it. And that started the whole journey with the Tivoli. I started with 5 embroiderers. So that would echo into all the groups that we work with. I always start with 5. Why? Because it's manageable to pay 5. When it jumps to 10 or 20, parang hirap na. But with 5, it's a great feeling when you work up. So it was 5 for quite a while, and then I started, and then I went to visit them, I think in 2011, and lo and behold, they ballooned to 25. And it was, that trip was like life-changing for me, because the textile designer that I met in New York came over, John Rocha. So we went to Lake Cebu, and then in true Filipino fashion, they had songs and dances, a program for us, and had like an area where we were supposed to sit. So when we were sitting there, they started giving speeches, and then at one point John leaned over and said, Len, why is everyone crying? I looked around, and really everyone was crying. It wasn't just tears falling down. It was like they were like, like sobbing. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was the first time that I realized the impact that Filip Inna had on these lives. And they were crying. They're like, farming, you don't know if you're going to have a good harvest, a storm will come, and then that's it. But when we see a dress, we know already what the amount is, and they're assured. And that was for me like life-changing, and I just swore to myself that I would do anything to make this business succeed. So that's them. So that's me trying to weave, that's them embroidering. So we started with 25, and then one thing that it's working, when they start hiring their sisters, their relatives, their neighbors, and then bigla na lang, we're at 120 in Tivoli. And we have so we created like a system wherein if it goes beyond like 12 to 18, each group should be like 12 to 18. So we know specifically which items go into like all these different groups. And then we started working with another group, the Salon. They're really amazing. They're like the small stitches. So it's a real collaboration with them. We give them like a blank canvas. This is like a free rein on their part. We just limited the oh no, it's going fast. How do I stop it? Back. Okay. So that's the Salon group, and when the Selatan group came, it was amazing because the Lamlahak group would see their work and they would see that, oh my gosh, it's so small. They started making their stitches smaller. So it was a really good competitive way of bringing up the quality of their work. Challenges, when we started working with that was, oh no, I'm like going over my 15 minutes. Stage from mga inconsistencies, like, yes, but we just kept on asking them to just embroider over and over, and we would tell them, okay, they should be like, same height, or yeah. And then it took a while. Really, I personally feel the last 6 years, we were just getting started, someone would ask me like, how do you feel like being where you are now? And I always feel that we're just starting. It's even just like we're starting. Now we have it in place. Now we can really like go out and like push it. So another challenge was like respecting the tradition, because there would be, so each of them is like grouped into like different groups, and at one point there was one group, Nancy Sinka's group. I was noticing nothing was coming in, so I had to call her and I said, "It's Nancy, what's happening? Nothing's coming in from your group." She said, "Oh, my uncle passed away." I said, "Oh no, I'm sorry. When did he die?" 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, "Oh, 3 weeks ago? And where is he?" He's in our house, so they're not allowed to embroider while there's a dead body in their house. I'm like, "Oh, okay. So when is he going to be buried?" And they said, "Well, his birthday is next month, so we want him with."
Oh my God.
Okay, that goes my production from one group. But yeah, thankfully we've expanded to 120, and thankfully they're more consistent now. And it's also like getting on the same page, sometimes they call me and they're like, "Ma'am, ang laki ng damit ito sa kaftan." Ang laki ng damit. Alam mo, ganito kalaki yung tao. So it's like, oh, because they need to know how it's going to be worn, because it's the placement of the embroidery. So it's all these like exchanges, and it's wonderful when they call me when they get a box, because you could hear people like giggling. And one time, I asked them to embroider a bathing suit. Just try to embroider a bathing suit. I didn't proceed with it, but when I was just wondering how they would like embroider on like something like synthetic and stretchy material. So they called me and they're like, "Ma'am, pati ba panty at bra embroider?" So I was like, "Oh no, how do you explain that?" It's like, "Oh no, bad idea, okay." No. It's, I always say, we're the turtles in fashion. It's such a slow process, and we give them free rein. There are garments that they can just like embroider on it, and then we come in and it's a collaboration. There are times when we pick up an old pattern, and then we just like translate it into like a tunic. But we started also, we teamed up with John Rausha to build a weaving center for Yagman, who's in the next slide. That's her husband. It's our way of like giving back. That's the way they do yeah, she is. She's one of the loveliest ladies, and this is good news. We're really trying to work with as many artisans as possible within the Tiboli. So the present, I'll just like quickly run through it. We have the Back to the Loom. We just recently helped build a Tiboli school in Lake Cebu. And then we started giving them like their own ATM cards, and it was an interesting process because they called me and they're like, "Oh man, we don't have an ID and we don't have our birth certificate." That's like what you need, right? They're like, "Okay, where can you get it?" Jensan daw. So, you know, you help them get to Jensan to get their like birth certificate. And when they come back, but really, they're so happy. I think it's so empowering for them to let go and like, you know, withdraw money. And then, so yeah, we're now at like 120 artisans, and just maybe like Saturday, I had a meeting with UNICEF, so we're looking into working, yeah, we are working with UNICEF to implement some of their programs. So one of the programs is like early education for the children, which I feel like is ideal because these mothers work within the confines of their homes, and that's really what Filip Inna is all about. Like when we go into when we start working with the indigenous group, we really study what their existing skill is. If it's not existing, then we start researching what was like a tradition that they had, and then try to like bring it back. So I'll quickly run through the different groups that we're working with. Yakan, they have beautiful weaves. It has been a challenge to work with them because of they use like polyester, and when you try to sell things in the US, anything with polyester, that's just like down. So we're really trying to source a good, yeah, they look for dandy, which is not available anymore in the market. So we've been confined to just like buying outright from what they weave, and basically we also focus on their hand tooled buttons, which we love. So that's going to come out in a future collection. We've been working with the Balaan also. We have two groups in Balay, lovely found. And I think we need, we found another group at the foot of Mount Matutong. So our second weaving center will be to benefit that group. They also have a very rich tradition in Abra weaving. Really beautiful. So with the Bilaans, we basically work with them using their skill with beadwork. So this one is like one of our collection. And then Gadan is from up north. It's one of my favorite indigenous groups. So they're in Paracelis. And the beadwork is just like this. You have one of the tops, right? And yeah, they're becoming really like a stronger group. So we're doing a fuller collection with them for 2000. It's funny, we were preparing them for 2018. So they're just like, they called me today and they said, "Ma'am, wala nang ulan, pwede na kayo mag-deliver." So all these like, you know, natural disasters that will prevent them from delivering, which is very hard when you're trying to hit the market abroad, because I was asking advice from some friends abroad, and they said, you know, when you deal with stores, when they say that you deliver on this day, you find ways to deliver that day. You know, thankfully with Filip Inna, we've had delays of like a week or even 2 weeks, but I think we've been able to tell our story, tell how we work with the artisans, that we're at their mercy, we're basically at their mercy when the clothes are with them, because they will finish when they finish. There are times when we've created a system of priority, so they know that they're supposed to focus on that, because sometimes they focus on like something that they find easy. So yeah, why did I bring that up? Anyway, so Lumban, I love Pinya. So it's a collection that I really want to like work on. We've also played around with just like doing embroidery on Abra with the Lumban embroiderers. So we work with Lumban embroiderers and Utang Taal. So we kind of like split them. Utang Taal handles embroidery on like linen and other things. Walumban, we focus on like them embroidery on pinya, which they do so well. Tausug. I was introduced to the Tausug by the Rasuls. This is what's her name? Almanis. So Almanis and her husband, they were the first two artisans that I worked with, and I was so excited because it was my first time to have like a male embroiderer, and he does it so well. Even up to now, he still embroiders for us. That's her. So she works from home. So that's the finished garment, and we've done like the tree of life. So back on the tree of life, like Islam had an injunction against using like people and like animals on like embroidery. So that's when the tree of life came out. Tagakalo. I have a funny story about them. I was introduced to them by the governor of Sarangani. And our first meeting, they said, you know, you meet halfway. And it was a sight to behold because they arrived on a habal-habal, fully clothed. They were sitting on baskets, basically. And I was like, wow. You know, sometimes I wish there's like a photographer with me. Because sometimes I get so caught up like, talking to them that I forget to take pictures. So our first two meetings were, I think Patricia came along with me, the initial meeting. And then the second was Dedes Sodel and Abra came along with me. So thankfully there's always like someone with me to attest to what happened. So the second time they came and at that point I was like feeling guilty because apparently they had traveled like 6 hours. And I thought, gosh, okay, I better do my part. So I told them, the next trip, I'm going to visit you. They're like, no ma'am, it's okay, we'll just come and meet you halfway. I'm like, no, I always do it, but like other groups, I will go to where you live. Like 6 hours, I'm like, we're on top of the mountain. That's like a walk in the park already. We're up there. And then so the next trip, I did go, and we started off at maybe like that 9:30. We got to the top of the mountain at like maybe 10:30, 11. And I was like, wow, beautiful view. This is going to be amazing. And I had like this vision in my head that, oh, you know, like skipping. And then they said, there was a landslide. We have to walk to the next village. It was like 20 minutes. We reached the village and I'm like, is this it? And they're like, no. And then they pointed. You know, it was like a village of like maybe like 20 houses, and they pointed. They're like, that's where we're going. And I look and I'm like, huh? Wait, where? I don't see. It's like all mountains. And they said, well, it's somewhere there. It's like 4 mountains away. And it took me 7 hours. I thought I was going to die. They thought I was going to die. Really, I was like, what? This is where the wisdom of just like you focus on your next step. Don't look up. Because it's a mountain, just like focus on your first step. It was the funniest thing because I was with 2 other people. One, we were supposed to film this whole thing, so they were doing like a killer. The filmmaker had this ailment where if he got too tired, he would get into like seizures. So there were only 2 horses. I was supposed to have the other horse. So he had to have the other horse, and then the girlfriend had to watch him. But they offered me the other horse, you know, I could not. Like, I got on it for like 5 seconds because the whole track, it was like Bangil on one side, and it's the mountainside on the other. So and when you meet people, and you really have no choice but to talk to them because you're face to face. And at one point, I would like tell the kids, thankfully I speak Bisaya, I'm like, no, I just have to say, nagibog kalibo. Nagibog to yung sa ako, I couldn't, and I was telling them, I can't move. Can you just like, just go around? Because I just can't. I was walking like this because I was too scared to like fall. So I was like walking the whole time. And then, but you know, 7 hours. So I got there maybe close to 7, and I was the last to arrive. No, I was the second to the last. There's someone else who came in last. So when I got there, you should have seen their faces because they really couldn't believe that I went. And I think that's the best thing when you. For me, when I say I'm working with this artisan or with this group, I really go and visit them because it's one way to know, it's one way to research, you know, read a book. Like with the kaulo, so they're very similar to the kulaman. Like I've been reading the book of Hamilton, and in his book, it's the kulaman was the tritik. But when I went to visit the Tagakaulo, I saw the tritik. We found one artisan who does the tritik. So let's explain. That's them. That's like horsehair over their head, and it's, you know, my last trip, like maybe a month ago, I went to visit them, and they were so happy I went again the second time. So you see over, you know, they vacated one house so for my team, and they said that, oh, you know, I think we were, at that point, we were like at 12 artisans or 13, and then they had found 31 more artisans. So I'm like turning to my girls and I'm like, okay girls, we need to like send them more stuff because, you know, they're excited to work. And gosh, it's just exquisite. Really, it's just amazing. And so this is one of the first pieces they make. This is the tritik. So it's basically they weave the abaca. After weaving the abaca, they sew it into a garment. After they sew the garment, they start embroidering using abaca thread. And then they dye it. And then after they dye it, they cut the embroidery to reveal the pattern. And we found one artisan. My first trip, I was like walking away, and then somebody said, ma'am, this person wants to show you something. Thankfully, I went back. He was selling me that piece. And I was like, no, it should stay with you. I'll come back. And the girl wasn't there. It was the husband who was showing it to me. And thankfully, when I was there a month ago, the artisan was there, and she was telling me that she can't show it to other people when she's weaving the fabric. So I was like, oh no, how do we document? But I'll deal with that the next trip. Baka next trip she'll agree to it. But so we did the initial revival of this process, which is really exciting, and it's really great when people hear about the opportunity that is available, because when it's a small village, word gets around fast. So when I was in the other house, they were like, how much did you give the artisan to jumpstart that program? And I'm like, you know, she's the only one who does it. So I shared with them how much, and they said, well, I know also how to do the tritik. I just don't know how to weave the abaca, but I can do the tritik. So, you know, they're excited to get back into it. And yesterday, I got a call from them, and they were so excited to say that the upper garment has been done, and now they're working on the shorts. I mean, it's traditional. It's the traditional shorts of the male of the Tagakaulo. So this is one project that I'm really excited about, and hopefully she's still young also. She's like 42. Yeah, and she's excited. I think that's the most important thing. She's excited to get into it. At first, I was worried. You know, I'm supposed to visit them like end first week of December, and I told her I'm coming back first week of December, and she was like assuring me, yeah, it'll be done by then. And true enough, they're on their way. What else do I have to say about the tagakaw? Oh no, sorry. I'm like, I gotta wash it. Yeah. So there. Mamyan, I visited them again like maybe 6 weeks ago, and this is the whole group. It's mostly the kudos that we work with. This is like an updated. It's selling so well, this vest. Sorry. So with the Mamyan, it's so interesting. So when I visited them the last time, we started with 3 embroiderers, with 2 weren't embroiderers but wanting to embroider, and now they're at like 46. It's really amazing. And when I went, they remembered the day that I visited them. They kind of saying, no, it was April 20. I'm like, really? And thank God for Instagram, because I posted that day, and it was like the day that they said, and I thought, gosh, they remember. Like I felt it was like a special time, for them. And my last trip, we started like asking, talking to 2 embroiderers. One said that her husband had a stroke, so she's the breadwinner, and the other one, her husband's still alive and working, and was very like doubtful of the work. He said, oh, this is just going to be like for one garment, and that's not going to continue. When he saw that for 8 months that we've been consistently producing, and now he's like encouraging his wife, get more stuff. And the amazing thing is even the kids are like getting into it. So there's like a Leo something, that his name, because they write their names on each garment. So Maggie, one of the assistant designers, was wondering, wow, there's like a male artisan now from Bangyan. But he's like a child, and he would embroidery on weekends. It's really amazing. So we've created like, for April next year, we're doing 2 programs. One in Mindoro, to have like a summer program for the young children to get into embroidery, just for them to know how to do it. And then another one in the Tiboli, one of the groups in the Tiboli. This is Manobo Bagobo. They have the resist dye technique, they call it Binubud, which is inspired from the moon. This is Kid, who's working with us. This is like an inspiration from their takudo, which is their traditional scarf. When I spoke to them, they were a bit sensitive about using the traditional tangkolo, because they felt that it was reserved for the chieftain. So I said, how about an inspired version? So this is like our inspired version of it. But they told me, don't use it on your head. It should just be. And I said, how about like we wear it around our necks? And they were like, okay, that's fine. So this is the dress. I'm excited about this group because we started just like producing rolls and rolls of fabric with them, and then doing a different system with this group. With the Tiboli, it's like a whole garment sent to them, and then they embroider on it. This one and Tausug, we lay the pattern on a fabric with like the patterns, and then they embroider on the fabric, and then we cut and make it into a garment. This one, we send them rolls of yardages of fabric, which they apply the binuput on. Itneg is up north. I basically use Al's fabrics and then add the embroidery from the Itneg. Maranao, a group close to my heart, and I grew up in Indigen, so it's like 30 minutes away from Marawi. I love the Langkit. Unfortunately, from my travels, and I love going to, if any one of you need to go see what a real artisanal village is in the Philippines, go to Tugaya. Unfortunately, it's not safe now, but maybe when things get better, it's amazing in Marawi.
The Marawi war ended.
Oh yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. Well, it's like 30 minutes away from Marawi, and that's where they do all the carving. So the last few times I went, I was working with a jewelry maker. Sorry, I didn't like take a picture of the silver bracelet that he made. And then, but again, the problem is like the material. They do the langkit, but in polyester. So, you know, it just like brings the quality down. So hopefully we will be able to start like giving them some threads and then have a better quality. Yeah, that's how they roll in a Kalaman way. So I always, well, and sorry, I went over. I always say that culture is our fingerprint. And it's something that, as Al has said, you know, it has to be in our everyday life. There's so much in our culture. There are a lot of minority cultures that have not been, that need to come out, and they need to be celebrated together with the Tibolis, the Balaans, the Tagakalos. I think the responsibility lies in each one of us to go out and like hunt or like look for these indigenous groups, whether to work with them or even to just like write about them, but they really need to like come out. I was talking to Butch and we were like discussing how I was telling him about like a lot of artifacts are in countries abroad that we don't have access to. But look at that. I mean, are we looking at the same thing? Yeah. Look at her. That's like so. That's tile. Yeah. Gosh, that's so innate to them. Look at that, the colors. And that's the yakan. I think it's for the weddings, so we have the marks. So yeah, I think through Filip Inna, it's our way of honoring the culture. We really try our best that when we come up with a garment, it's to the best of the ability of the artisan and to the best of what we can put in from our side, whether it's design or the way we finish the garment, because we feel that once it's out there, and thankfully we've been joining trade shows in the US, we're getting into stores. One of our biggest clients, Erin Logger, just emailed us a few days ago saying they will order again for the 5th year, and it's such encouragement because although there are times when, you know, there are stores who will stop ordering, but it's never because it didn't sell. It's because of circumstances that, you know, buying is so tricky. Sometimes they'll forget you. But when I asked them, how did it do? How did the whole collection sell? And they would always say, we have a good sell-through. It's always like 80 to 90% of what they bought, they're able to sell. And some, they sell every piece. So we're very encouraged that people abroad and even locally are willing to. It's not cheap, but really we use DMC thread from France for the embroidery. So even if you've had the garment for like 6 years, I've had one garment that was our first sample, so maybe it's like 8 or 9 years old, and people still look at it and think it's like a current collection. And I tell them, no, this is like 7, 8 years old, and I can't believe it, because we really invest in like good material and even finishing it with the excess inside. I tell the finishers in Taguig, I tell them, you know, when you're in a trade show, people comment on the look of the garment, but at the same time, their right hand is already lifting up the hem, looking at how you finish it. And it makes me so proud to say that that's how we finish our garments in the Philippines. That's the traditional way. And they're like, what? All this like excess? It's like all the effort that goes into it. But in the end, that's what I think people are looking for now in garments, that there's a soul, there's, you know, like people, the artisan really spend time on it, you know, so again, I should close. So that's what we're trying to do with Filip Inna. It's really our way of honor our culture. Thank you.
Okay, with developing fabric technology and like weaving machines coming into the picture, do you think that could change the game of weaving these specific fabrics to make it more mass-produced if you wanted to?
Here's here. Yeah.
We can pass it back.
I'll type it after, but it's not working.
Actually, that is already present. The patterns can be woven in the machine. But that's the reason why I always say that you should start repackaging. I mean, looking at hand-woven items as artisanal products. These are handmade, done by human beings to express whatever they feel, their emotions, their lifestyle. So it becomes a work of art. So, in a machine made, I mean, in the future of Abel, that's what I see. The future that I want to go through as a businessman would be to translate all these patterns and make it accessible by making it machine made and come up with your 6 to width, and we now can supply hotels or commercially or in the commercial quantities. And why not? But why can't we do that? It's because maybe we need more investors for now. But we can be ready in making them into machine-made products. And we should welcome that. But the important thing is, that's why we have the center. We have to document it and claim it that these are Filipino things before we start going to mass production.
Yeah, it's a reality that we're facing, and we're in it now. I think also that there will always be a place for hand weaving, for hand embroidery, and for hand beading, and that's where I'm coming in. I just love anything that is made by the hands. So I think we all have our own spheres to like deal with. I feel I have that responsibility and that passion for anything that's done by hand. So I'll stick to it. I think I'll stick to it. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like machine, because that's really how, in a way, that you reach other markets. I think I value the handiwork, because I know I've met all these artisans. They appreciate that they can earn a living out of something that they know already. They don't have to go to like school, to college to be able to earn a living. It's something that they know already, and I think there's always we have a role to play, and I feel like that's my role in. Yeah.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. I'm interested to know the part of the story where you show the women, like the women in Southampton wearing their things.
Oh,
Like the big people, you know, they just think it's amazing.
Okay, but when I started Filip Inna, I didn't know how to price it, so I looked at the website of Tory Burch. I was like, okay, she's selling her shorts for 140, and it's like mass produced. Okay, mine is hand embroidered. Okay, I'll just like price it like 160. Let's see, and it's sold. And then now I think it's like at 280, 320 up. So the first 2 years, I would just like send the clothes. Then finally the women of Indagari said, I think you have to show up because people are starting to ask questions. So I showed up. It was a Trump show at the Pierre Hotel. And lo and behold, who came? It was Tory Burch. And she loved the shorts. She bought a pair of shorts, and then she ordered, I think, the Vicenta skirt, which we made in cashmere. Whoa. Yeah, it was the only piece, and I sold the sample. So, so they, you know, friends would tell me, oh, I saw the CEO of Saks Fifth Avenue wearing like head to toe Filip Inna. It's really a great feeling because they always say, this is made in the Philippines? Really? We didn't know that you had it. You know, they have this really strange concept or like impression of the Philippines that we don't have a culture. And I'm like, no, this is, we have, you know, Indians have the sari and it's just done in like different fabrics, or the Japanese have their kimono. It's done in different fabrics, but when you look at the Philippines, it's all like different garments. Like even if you look into like Mindanao, it's abaka but done in different ways. So it makes me so proud to be able to like share with them the stories of these artisans. Like it's an opportunity for me to start talking about like the Tiboli. And yeah.
Would you ever tell the Filipino weaver or show a picture of like this block?
I have tried. And they're detached from it.
No, really.
They cried when they saw the vice president wear the jacket.
Which vice president?
Lenny Robredo. Yeah. But she was wearing, no.
Mike Pence.
No. Because I because one time I got this email from the Secretary of Indigenous. We were selling at her store in Bahamas. They emailed me and they said, you'd be happy to know that Carla Bruni bought a pair of your shorts. And I was sitting in our workshop in Taguig and I'm like, oh my gosh, does she know what that pair of shorts went through? Like, you know, the journey that it took. And I told them about it. I'm like, you know, the wife of the French president bought a pair of the shorts. And they're like, oh. But when they see a Filipino wear it, oh gosh, they cry. They're so proud. They, you know, so I saved it for, you know, I tell, yeah. I think like the States, it's like for them, too abstract, yeah.
So when you sell to foreign crowds, like the States, the Southampton people and all of that, do you ever put like a little thing in your shorts where like, it tells the story of how this thing was made so that those people are educated themselves because of it?
There's a short blurb. We're doing a new brand identity for Filip Inna. We're launching early next year. So we promise to add more information because first we started with just pieces of fabrics that they would write their names on it and then they would sew it on the garment. They loved it. Like I have a friend in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's still stuck on her garment because she refuses to like leave it, like remove it because she feels like it's her attachment to the artisan. So we're gonna go back to that, but like just do it in a more, it was like takshae. So we're doing it in a more decent way. So we've been practicing them like embroidering on a smaller tag just for them to embroider their names. And we're looking into really like putting pictures and we just need to find a way to do it because it's a big expense. There might be one person, if we do a print of her picture, she might just be producing like 5 in a year, you know? So we really have to be creative in finding a way to put their picture, at the very least, their names. So, and have a separate tag for each group, like really write a blurb for each group. It has been a bit overwhelming, like really for me. Like I don't know where to start because there's so much that needs to be done, but financially, you know, it limits me. But we've really, it's not perfect, but we're really like trying our best to especially with the rebranding next year, to come up with something that will really tell the full story of each artisan.
I have a really good suggestion. What if you put, instead of putting the blurb on the thing, you put a tag with a QR code, and then it just links you to your website to where exactly the thing is made.
Thank you.
It's cheap, it's easy, and
thank you, Ines.
I'll send it to you.
Why don't we work on it together?
Yeah. text you. My mom has all that equipment.
Oh, great. You have my number. Can you send me a message so I have your number?
Should I send it to you?
Okay. Yes.
I think we spoke about, so we spoke about this earlier. I don't know if the question was asked because I went to the bathroom.
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. So earlier before this talk started, we wanted them to speak about their views on a trending topic now, which is cultural misappropriation. Appropriation or misappropriation. And this is very relevant in their practice. So I'll just ask Tuvi, what are your views on this, and how do we move forward in I guess, a very high in demand industry and be very responsible in the way that we cite our sources or cite the intellectual property of these indigenous peoples? I'll give to Al.
As I was saying earlier, the first step to this is, one, do your assignment, do your research. Because a lot of people going into this so-called social entrepreneurship is that they're there because it's the fun. It's uso. So, I'm there. So they go, get a blanket, make it into a tunic. They didn't know that it was a burial blanket. So usually, for people who know, I usually joke and say, would you want to be buried? Or somebody running around in a tunic made of a blanket. So I'd say, I have a pillow that matches yours. I mean, that's the joke part of it. But the thing is, as Filipinos, we should actually do our part of researching. That's why we are also accepting all these talks. Because it's our way of educating people. And in terms of in terms of giving credit to the weavers, to the communities, we do our part and say this is Inabel unwoven product from the Ilocos and doing all those stuff. And it's actually being more sensitive with the traditions of the communities. That's the basic part of the reason why all of these things are happening now is because they just see, they don't look at the textile, the story behind the textiles. They just look at it and they say it's pretty, we'll make a new piece. So it's just 1 or 2 steps more and do your research.
I think this all came up when all the big brands abroad started picking up, taking inspiration from somewhere. And they didn't credit where it came from. So when I think we, how do I start? When we work with artisans, even the patterns that the Tiboli women come up with, I don't own that. They own it. So we've really tried to find a way to give them more, just so they're part of this whole process. Cultural appropriation is really 2 things: that you credit where it was inspired from, and they should be a part of the whole process. So, in a way, we can't just pick up on something and use it for something without properly saying who created that originally. And we should, people have been discounting the artisans. They've just created something inspired from what the artisans have been making. So it's really important, and I feel, especially as I work with the artisans, it's my responsibility to always make sure that the garment or talks about the group, or even talks about the artisan, that they are, that's why it's Filip Inna. It's really about the artisan. That's what the brand is all about. And I don't know, I refuse to talk about what's out there, but I think there's that responsibility, again, lies in each one of us to use it responsibly, because we're in a point now where people are starting to look to the Philippines, whether it's in architecture, whether it's in art, or whether it's in food. They're starting to look at us. It's our responsibility to come up with the best possible product that these artisans can make. It's not a hobby. We should really make it like a purpose that we should help work with these artisans to show what they're capable of doing. Because in the end, people will look at the garment and be interested in the culture behind it. If they're able to buy that dress for, let's say, $400, what more an original piece? That should drive up the value of something that is original, that is traditional. I'm just making something that is inspired by a certain garment. So that's the whole thing that we should be looking at, that we should put more value on something that is original. Like an original jacket that was worn by by someone years ago. That should have more value than the dress that I'm making. And I think that's I feel my responsibility in like shifting. I think especially in the market abroad, there are certain segments that I have their attention already. It's now the time to talk about the culture, the traditional culture, for them to look beyond the brand and go into the cultures of the Philippines. And that will completely change the whole, their perception of our country. Yes, Butch. Oh no, is this a hard question?
No, actually, I was very happy about we have a cultural heritage studies program in Ateneo. And so, for years I've always been telling my students that the problem is our own heritage is invisible to us Filipinos, what more to the rest of the world. That's why I'm so happy about what you're doing, because you're actually reaching out to young Filipinos, which is very important. I just wanted to bring up three things. What about cultural misappropriation? The famous French-Czech artist, Victor Vesarelli, was very fond of pop art. Apparently knew something about binakol because some of his pieces resemble the optical illusions of binakol. But it's interesting that one of his pieces is called Mindanao. I guess he didn't know enough about the Philippines, so they call it Mindanao rather than Ilocos. It's something trivial, but you can use it for advertising, I don't know. Now, two other things. What I wanted to bring up is this. I think for promoting our beads, it might be good to point out that actually their impact on the Americas took place much, much earlier. Because Mexican scholars have pointed out the rebozo, which is the main garment of Mexican ladies. It's a rectangular shawl that has ikat designs. May have been influenced by the Philippines and Southeast Asia, because apparently there was no ikat in pre-colonial Mexico. So they're conjecturing now that it's exports from the Philippines through the garden trade that influenced Mexicans in developing the ikat design. So that was when garden trade was 1565 to 1815. The other thing is, well, as you mentioned earlier, the Ilocano weaves are actually quite renowned in the Spanish-speaking world. I came across a statement by Siriaco Carvajal, the Spanish minister for the ultramar, for the colonies in 1820, where he says that Ilocano weaves were better than British weaves because they were sturdier, much, much sturdier. So Ilocano weaves were known also in the New World much earlier. So that's something to bring up.
Thank you. Next question to the back.
Hi, this is Kira. And it's Mexican. It's Mexican.
Hi there, my name's Kylie. I'm sort of also getting into weaving. In fact, I kind of have a small enterprise or project that we're doing with weavers in Bangar. We make them into beach, parang right now we're making into beach towels. But anyway, I'm coming from the perspective of like an operations side because I also know that part already a little bit, not like you guys who have a lot of experience. That's why I want to ask, in terms of working with weavers, actually I have like a ton of questions, but I think one is how, like I think we all have the intention of wanting to preserve the art, the craft, the art, and as you said also, there's very limited number of people who still know how, and if ever, that's kind of, in a way, kind of like they're captured na. I mean, meaning there are people working with them already. So as a growing sort of industry of people who are interested in hand weaving, first, how do we share resources? Knowing also because it's hand woven, priority, diba, parang it takes longer, there will be a line, or, and we all want to sort of, share it, right? So how do we do that first, in a way, as a small industry? And then second of all, in terms of working with cooperatives, as you mentioned, because usually they're the ones, the first in line, like they're the more well-known ones when you go to a certain community. How do you work with weavers in a way where, parang, you don't step the line, because sometimes now that they have a business and you want to work with the weavers directly because it helps with innovation and design, how do you not work with co-ops in a way where it's still respectful and you really still want to help, everyone else, the weavers themselves? So out of the 10 questions I want to ask, maybe I'll just leave it with those 2 questions first. Thank you.
Oh, here. This one is for the
Bangar. I love that town. It's hard to work with Bangar to begin with. And then your first question is how do you work with them and how do you get your trust? And actually it takes 15 to 20 years. I could not change a single color, a single width, a single design. It took 15 to 20 years. You do not change the width in one go. It will take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years before you can change it. You cannot change the color in one go. You cannot take one element at one go, especially if you talk to Ilocano weavers. Why? At times, they say, baka pangit, sir. But I realized that was the reason. Then I go back to them and say, whether it's nice, pangit, or maganda, it's my fault, I'll buy it. But it took time. It took time. And that's the reason why I had to know how to weave. So they cannot say it's hard. So they can no longer reason out. So that's why I say 15 years. Now, how do you not work with cooperatives? The thing is, you need to speak the language. You need to speak the language. I have a very personal relationship with the weavers, and it will take 1 trip, 2 trips, 3 trips. I had to live in a weaving center for 2 years in Pawai and learn the whole gamut of the process. How do we share resources? We can work. We can work together. I can do your shortcuts. But the thing is, let's see it. Let's talk. And maybe I can introduce you to some of the weavers. Bangar produces very beautiful weaves, but they want to do the easy things. They want to finish a blanket in a day. I worked with them last year. We were able to produce 6 blankets, and they were even more beautiful than the blankets that Pawai was producing. But they did not want to do it again. Because it's hard. It's hard.
If you pay them a little bit more, Do you think they'll...
No, I was tripling. I was paying them 5 times what they used for the Palenque grade blanket. It's yun, but those are things you just have to accept. You just have to accept and work with them. Never force them because they have, especially the Ilocano weavers, they still look at how the plant, they still work according to the rice planting season. For them, it's more important that they have 12 or 15 sacks of rice before they start weaving because they'll be alive for the next year. So you respect that, and that's the cycle.
Can I add something quick to that? We're now doing a show with an artist called Sian and it's opening in December. And the focus of this next exhibition is his research and his work with the Aitas in Bataan. And one of the, RJ, who's our project manager over there wearing a red cap, he's been dealing with a production between Sian and the Aitas in Bataan. And it's the negotiations with them, which you have to respect, is one day they'll say, yeah, we'll build the kubo in 1 week, and this is the price. And you come back in a week, and then they'll say, wait, no, that's not what we talked about. It's double the price now, and it'll take more time. And you can't, and we've analyzed this several times, like how do you incentivize them to produce in your time? And there's nothing really you can do. But you just have to wait and you have to respect it because you can't force them in your time. They don't think, they're not plugged in to our daily life, you know, they're not plugged into, they don't have the pressures of daily life. They can live very well on their own. Like you say, they're not poor. They can live in the jungle and they have their medicine, they have their food, and we shouldn't treat it as if like, here you go, you know, you poor thing. Like, you have to be respectful of their culture and you have to understand that what, you know, the disagreement is not a sign of disrespect, it's just their way of working. And that becomes then part of the work itself. And it became a revelation in Sian's work that this misinterpretation of time is actually like part of the work that Sian is producing. So anyway, yeah. Maybe Len.
Yes, you're still working with humans.
Yeah,
not machines.
They're not machines.
I would encourage you to go out and look for indigenous groups that like no one's working with them yet, because there's so much really. We just need to. I find groups because I'm really proactive in like asking around. There are still seriously like maybe like 10 groups that I want to work with. So there's something out there. You just have to like do research, whether it's like some skill that they have that you can build up on. So yeah, just go out. Just go out. Don't limit yourself to like the Inabel. Like go out. Like even just go down. You don't have to go all the way down to Mindanao yet, but like Visayas would have a lot of the artisans. And start small. Just start with 2 weavers and then build up on it.
I said I would listen. I never said I would ask a question. But anyway, one of the things that amazed me about your stories is you make it sound so easy. But I think a lot of what you're doing now was built on the trust that you developed with the artisans that you're working with. So how was it? I kind of sense that it's a trial and error process, but how was it really to establish that trust with them? Because I think that's the secret of being able to work with them with a much longer time frame in mind. I think you're in this for the long haul. But how do you get them to trust that you're in it for the long haul?
It's time. It's only time that can gain, where you can gain their trust. You first become an outsider, then you become a friend who actually orders and likes and gives them income. Then at some point, the orders become more, you become part of their daily lives because part of their income already comes from what they do, and from the orders that you get. Then after that, you become part of their family. I now know if somebody gets sick, if somebody is rushed to the hospital, because they say, "Sir, yung anak ko nakasakit," pa-advance. So we don't actually, we're not just people doing business, we're actually social workers. We're actually their brother, and there's Mr. there. We become part of the family. So we have a family of weavers. So Christmas parties isn't easy for us. We have 200 people to invite for Christmas parties. You parappa refrigerator, gas toys, so somebody wants to give gas to ball clock and anything, we can give you the sarapas. But that's how it is. You gain, it's not trust that you gain a family, you gain a barrio, you adopt a barrio, you adopt a community. And that's how it goes. So now, they think it's easy when I say you change that color and put this pattern and put that. It sounds easy for me now because they will now follow me blindly. Unlike before, that they trust that everything they produce will be pretty. So, time. Invest a lot of time.
Yes, I agree on time, and there's nothing like personally visiting them. And like I remember when my first night in with the Tagakalo, they vacated one house and I looked around and I saw that it was bare except for school medals. So that's when I realized how important education was for them. It's then you become, when you spend time with them, when you eat what they serve and when you just like sit and like chat, you become more discerning on how to work with them. You understand, you become more patient because you know where they're coming from. There's one, my last trip to the Tiboli, it was a 2-hour hike up the mountain, and this group, you know, at first I didn't know much about this group. The Tiboli artisans had grown to 120, so I said, okay, no, we're not going to have one general assembly. I'll go where you live. It was the first time that, you know, and shame on me, it was like it took me 8 years to visit them where they actually live. They would always just like, we will have like one big general assembly. But this time I felt like, you know, I needed to connect with each group, and thankfully I did. Because I went up and I got to meet the husbands. I started hearing all these stories. It was physically draining and it was emotionally draining because then you hear all these stories about what goes on within each family. And at one point I just said to myself, oh my gosh, this is too much for one part. I need to like talk to someone about it because but it's the only way they know. When I remember when I got sick, they all like started sending me messages that they were like praying for me, that they were so concerned and all that. So I think again, as Al has said, there has to be a personal relationship going on, and the only way that can happen is when you spend time with them. If they want you to stay overnight, they're not without a mattress, then you know you do it. You become one with them, and I personally feel that's the only way. When they see this, you know, they see you. They have access to me. Just today, I was like talking to 6 groups because they kept on like texting me, calling me up, but they have direct line to me. Even when I'm in the US, they call me and I'm like, oh no. But they know that they can call me. When I'm in the Philippines, they know that I'm going to pick up, that I'm going to talk to them and ask them what's wrong and or like what they need. I think that has to happen for trust to have to come in. And when trust is there, then you really can work work together in ways that you can never imagine, you know, because both parties are willing to put in the best what they can into the garment.
I'll start briefly with Jen to say thank you to you
Thank you.
for inviting Len and Al to talk to us tonight. In all the years I've known them, it's their work that's spoken. It's been a long time. I don't think I ever heard the two of you speak like this, to tell your stories like this. It's always been the work that's spoken for you. So thank you. This has been wonderful. I've known you guys for a long time. I want you to know how much I admire each of you. The impact that you have on your weaving communities is clearly felt amongst them. I don't know that you realize the impact you've had on me and on people like me, where you have taught us that Filipino is beyond anything most of us grew up with. Filipiniana, for me, was the saya my mother wore to the Flores de Mayo procession, or something like, or my grandmother in her panuelo or her Maria Clara. You taught me that Filipiniana is every day, and that it's beautiful. You opened windows into communities that maybe we knew about, maybe we've seen a few photographs, but you have brought living tradition into our everyday lives so that we live with them, we embrace them daily. You talk about artisanal work, Al, you talk about each piece as an art piece, but you also taught me that I can live with these art pieces every day. And so when I open the door of my son's bedroom and I see one of your cloths with a twisted yarn, and I remember your stories about some of these blankets you can replicate and some never. They're one of a kind. And I find so much joy when I can say to my guests, you see the joinery? These are the hands that planted the rice. These are the fronts in the field. And when I tell these stories, I think of you because these are the stories you told me. You have shown me how to live with living tradition. And what the two of you have taught me, I have passed to my children. And to the cousins in Cebu who don't have as much access or exposure. Now they come to Manila every year for Likang Happy to see your work. And they buy it now because they get it. And now even in their lives, these traditions are living. You have changed the way we look at Filipino. And I hope you know how proud we are of the two of you.
I just wanted to say about education because actually this is more for Marcials regarding the passing it on through education. When I was teaching Philippine art history, what I used to do, I would bring my students up to Silay's crafts on the second floor, and where all the ethnic crafts are, and that's where I do my lecture. Pick up something and I'll explain it to you. That's how I did the lecture. And there was a long time ago, maybe 20-25 years ago, I was trying to set up a museum. I met Norma Respicio, and I was trying to set up a museum for her collection. I even went all the way to Filtrate, tried to find out if we can rent 3, what do you call those? Stalls. So one for Luzon, one for Visayas, and one for Mindanao. Nothing. I mean, and then I found out that the National Museum has set up something like this, but it's still very, very small. And then one other thing is, when I went to Myanmar, part of our tour was to go to a weaving community. So I'm hoping that, you know, people who do tours here in the Philippines will be able to do that. You know, we will go to a weaving community because they can buy the stuff there.
We just want to say thank you to both Al and Len. I think what Pilar said earlier is very true to many of us, and how your work has touched all of us and has really sparked new life into what Filipino culture is, because we can wear it, we can use it every day. And it's, for us in the arts, it's made us much easier to wear something, a Filipino artwork, and go around and, you know, speak about how great the art scene is in the Philippines, but also say how wonderful the craftsmanship is. You can see Diana going around globe-trotting all over the world wearing Len's stuff. Every time we have artists that spend a lot of time with us, we always give them Al's blankets, and we always get such great reviews. So anyway, we're very lucky to have such wonderful people and heroes in Philippine culture like yourselves, and we hope that you've enjoyed this session as well. Thank you very much.